Imagine this. You've just been laid off from work before Christmas because your local governor decided to shut down the economy. You're sitting at home thinking about how you can make ends meet, waiting for your $600 stimulus check. You hear a loud rumbling outside. You can't look out the window. It's been boarded up. It was smashed last year in the BLM riots. And of course, you don't have the money to replace it now. So you go to your door and you see a large crowd of white liberals screaming, "No justice, no peace," as they throw rocks through your one remaining window that's intact. This is the reality that many people could be facing tonight. Why? Because a serial criminal who was shot trying to grab a knife in an attempt to attack police. Today, charges will likely be announced against the officer who shot Jacob Blake, and the National Guard have already been called in as emergency powers have been given to the local mayor. Also, we're taking a look at Trump's call with Raffensperger, the Georgia Secretary of State. You might have already heard about this, and once again, we're forced to call out the dishonest media, as they can't help themselves, but to try and discredit Trump by any means necessary and throw away the rule books of honest reporting, if they have to. This is Political, and a big thank you to everyone joining us today. As always, give us a subscribe, give us a like, a comment down below if you do enjoy the content. Of course, it helps out the channel, and we love to hear what you have to say. So, without further ado, let's jump into this.
Yeah, sure. I love that introduction, by the way. It was very emotive, very cool, but unfortunately, a sad reality. So, do you remember Jacob Blake? Okay, so his girlfriend filed a sexual assault charge against him, called the police on him in August after he apparently took their kids by force. She was screaming to the officers, "He's got my kids." Then when the police stopped him, reached for a knife, charged the officers, got himself shot a few times. And then, as you say, white liberals hated this and tried to burn down Kenosha. All these cases kind of blur into one for me. So just a little reminder for you. We have an update here from the New York Post. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers is deploying 500 National Guard troops to Kenosha in anticipation of unrest as prosecutors announce whether there will be charges in the shooting of Jacob Blake. City workers on Monday finished installing security fencing around the Kenosha courthouse, and cops closed off side streets in anticipation of protests. Kenosha News said. City police said in a statement Sunday that the measures were among the planned precautionary efforts to ensure safety. Planned precautionary efforts do not involve the mobilization of the National Guard, by the way. Just saying, that isn't normal. Don't believe them when they're trying to normalize that. But we have down here as well, the move comes as Kenosha City Council is scheduled to vote late Monday on an emergency declaration that will give Mayor John Antamian wider powers to help establish order in the city of 100,000. Blake, who is black, was left paralyzed after he was shot 7 times in the back by Kenosha cop Rustin Shesky, who is white, during a domestic disturbance on August 23rd. Now, why does the race matter? I'm not sure. Is it relevant to the case? I don't think so. What do you think, Guy?
No, it's not relevant to the case whatsoever. It's not, I mean, unless they're alleging that it was a hate crime, which I don't believe that they are, although I'm sure that's what everyone, well, every liberal thinks about any shooting by any white person on any black person. But I think there's two sort of main issues here for me. One is the worrying trend that now how much money is going to be spent on taxpayers' money, not just on replacing federal buildings, and through obviously, and people having to make various claims to replace, their own homes and whatever through insurance and this kind of thing, or pay for it themselves. But also, and obviously, you've got judges who are going to be sort of stuck in this horrible situation now, where when they're coming up, they have to make a decision. Now they're supposed to take their bias out of it. They're supposed to take, any emotion out of it, make a decision based upon the law, based upon the evidence that's in front of them. It's very hard for them to do that when they know that, say in this instance, they say, no, this is ludicrous. Of course, the guy was reaching for a knife. I'm not going to bring charges against the officer. That could potentially lead to many people losing their lives and many millions of pounds of property being destroyed. That's a horrible, horrible situation that they're going to be in, and that's going to become the norm now. Every time one of these things happens. The second thing is, like, if you're a police officer in not just Kenosha but anywhere, like if this now becomes the precedent that if you shoot a black person and you're white, even if they were, running at you with a knife, as we've seen on many cases that there've been riots over, or in this case, the guy's trying to grab the knife after you've tried to, what do you say? They tried to, they tasered him, and he had them in a headlock at one point, or something along those lines. Like they've tried all the other different methods. He's now going to grab a knife to run at you. Like, it's just going to make police work impossible as well. So not only is it impossible for judges to make these decisions, it's impossible for police to make these decisions. They're just going to leave the force, and things are just going to get worse.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And in fact, we've looked at several such cases on this channel. And, each time we see declining numbers in the police force as a result of this. I think in Minneapolis, we saw that as well before they cut all the funding. But as well, almost every case we've looked at, we've covered like 4 or 5 of these by now. And it all starts the same. A man who happens to be black commits a crime, assaults a police officer, tries to kill them in most cases. They're shot, rightfully so. And white liberals, tear up the city, burn down everything they can find. Like, how is that a proportionate reaction? And you say it makes police work impossible. You're absolutely right. And in fact, you can actually see this mirrored now because did you see recently when the police, there was the first Black Death after the George Floyd ruling or whatever it was, but they have to send a black spokesperson out, right? And you can't have a white person commenting on that, and you have to find, you have to look through the entire force for the black person who is allowed to comment on it. It's exactly as you say. It's basically as if lefties are holding a knife to the throat of the nation. It's just that they're enforcing their agenda by violence and the threat of violence, and that is just not a healthy place for society to be in.
No, exactly not. And it's when you put it in that context there, it's actually quite a stark reminder of where we've got to. Like, people forcing their agenda through violence. That is what is happening, and apparently most people are okay with it and promote it. I don't know how we got there, but it's spreading, and it's going to start happening, I think, across other European countries as well. It already is. But anyway, let's take a look at this one. This has actually got the original article here from the Washington Post. You've probably seen this. You've probably heard about this. Every time something like this happens, whether you have one of these expose or big breaking news stories from the Washington Post or whatever, what they did, like with the tax returns, it gets beamed onto my phone, whether I like it or not, through various notifications. And I just think how many people with smartphones get all these notifications. So that's how I first heard about it. And so I read into it. And it's ridiculous. So this is the title. Remember this. I just want to find 11,780 votes in extraordinary hour-long call. Trump pressures Georgia's Secretary of State to recalculate the vote in his favor. I mean, now what sort of are you imagining in your mind from that headline? Here's the reality. So President Trump urged fellow Republican Brad Raffensperger, the Georgia Secretary of State, to find enough votes to overturn his defeat in an extraordinary 1-hour phone call on Saturday that legal scholars described as a flagrant abuse of power and potential criminal act. The Washington Post obtained a recording of the conversation in which Trump alternately berated Raffensperger, tried to flatter him, begged him to act, and threatened him with vague criminal consequences if the Secretary of State refused to pursue his false claims, at one point saying Raffensperger was taking a big risk. Throughout the call, Raffensperger in his office, his general counsel rejected Trump's assertions, explaining that the president is relying on debunked conspiracy theories and that President-elect Joe Biden is 11,000 or so victory in Georgia was fair and accurate. So I don't want to talk about the fraud. We're always talking about the fraud, and that is a whole totally different argument. I want to focus on the media and the media's portrayal of the situation. So here's the actual quote. At one point, Trump said, "So look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have because we won the state." He's saying to Raffensperger, and this is basically the actual sentiment of what he's saying. He believes there's voter fraud. He believes he won the state. He's saying to Raffensperger, you need to find the fraudulent votes because we definitely won the state. He's not asking him to just change it and change the votes. He's not asking him to do anything illegal. He believes he's won the state. He thinks there was fraud that's going on, and he wants Raffensperger to do something about it. That's totally different than the sort of image that's invoked from the headline. And this is the typical dishonest media that you see, because then you see this everywhere, all over the place. Every mainstream news outlet reporting the same headline, and most people who don't look past the headline think Trump is now trying to pressure Secretary of States to just give him the election.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. We have to look at the intent, don't we? The intent is 9/10 of the crime, or of the law, as they say. Do people think the president just calls people up to commit one of the worst crimes that one can actually commit, just casually off the top of his head, and he just says, "Okay, commit election fraud or whatever," in an hour-long phone conversation? Only if you're Joe Biden, but no one else in that. So let's just look at the intent then. Donald Trump believes he has had fraud committed against him. Now, whatever you think of that fraud, like as you said, that isn't a debate. Both sides can understand. He feels aggrieved. He's not ordering these votes to be created. Anything like that. He wants them found. Okay. He believes they've gone missing. He wants them found. Never Trumpers. They're going to spin any tale. They're going to tell you any lie. They're going to take any, any phrase that can be taken out of context, and they'll use it against him. And it's so sad that they're still doing that when they believe he's on his way out. I saw in the Guardian they're going to potentially bring charges against him. Legal Eagle made an hour-long video about whether there's a legal case there. Criminal charges for this. Like, honestly, if there's criminal charges being brought against the president of the United States for this, then we all have to seriously watch out, and we all seriously have to monitor what we're saying, because we probably have to delete this channel, Ryan, because the bar for prosecutions has been set so low. And on that bombshell, I think we'll end it there. So thanks so much for listening, guys. Good luck to the great people of Georgia. I hope you produce at least one Republican. The polls say you probably are, but we'll see what happens. Good luck to Georgia. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe, like, and comment. Please do, and we'll see you next time.